Quantic Dream's games often split opinion right down the middle, and I don't think Detroit Become Human is going to do much to stop that. Personally, as a fan of the studio's previous output, it's a game that both delights and frustrates in equal measure. When it comes to Detroit, your enjoyment of the game will boil down to just how much you're prepared to forgive David Cage and the team behind one of the PS4's more curious titles for. If you've never played a Quantic Dream game before, it's surprisingly tricky to describe. It's not your typical video game, that's for sure. Focused on moral choices, interactions with other characters, and multiple other factors alongside some unique gameplay mechanics, it is, by their own admission, more of an interactive experience than your average third-person action game. I've been a defender of the studios with previous titles, particularly when it comes to narrative elements which leave plot holes big enough to drive a bus through. But with Detroit, I'm left really conflicted, and not necessarily in the way that the developers intended. One of the biggest bugbears is related to the control system. Detroit switches things up from a fixed camera perspective to having a free moving camera controlled entirely with the right stick. One of the biggest issues that I found, particularly in the early game, is that the right stick is also needed to interact with things in the environment that are not only crucial to story progression, but also really small at times. With 12 other buttons available on the DualShock 4, this decision's one that baffled me, and served only as a point of frustration when it got to some time-limited sections that required precise inputs, only for me to end up swinging the camera to the top of the ceiling when I should have been picking up a gun. The other bone of contention for me lies with some of the dialogue in the game. While Cage has never been one to be showered with literary prizes for his previous works, there are some lines within Detroit that could be straight out of a sixth form drama production. Just when you think there's going to be some profound, revelatory moment, there is more often than not a page ripped straight out of a book entitled Big Dave's Big Book of Big Clichés, and would be more cheesy than your average side order at Nando's. It served to highlight that David Cage isn't as much of an auteur as he thinks he is, and at times just needs to take himself and the game a little bit less seriously. That last point is one that really does emanate throughout the title. There are plot points that can be called a mile away, not only through the cliched writing, but also through passages of dialogue that not only hint at things to come, but outright spoil them if you think about them for a minute. And there are moments that in most games you take as a joke, but with Detroit you're just not too sure. That isn't to say that I'm down on the game though. Detroit itself is a wonderfully bleak rendition of a city that's been subjected to a class divide, but is almost on the brink of civil war, thanks to an abundance of android that can carry out more menial jobs in society, leaving those that have been ousted frustrated and eager to get rid of them. It's a little bit like Brexit Britain, but with Johnny Five instead of immigrants. For the most part, the game's themes are explored with a level of intricacy that I was worried wouldn't be present, although there are several moments that are much less clever than they think they are, presented with all the subtlety of a brick through a window. Performances from the main cast are solid, given that there are some clunkers of lines of dialogue to work with, and the game looks absolutely beautiful on PS4 and PS4 Pro, with only a couple of NPCs that made me think they were more suited to the original release of Heavy Rain than a AAA 2018 title. Ultimately, as I mentioned at the start of the review, it does come down to how much you're prepared to forgive David Cage for. If you can live with some poor scripting and a few points where you'll struggle to not launch your controller through a window, then Detroit is a continuation of the work Quantic Dream have been doing since Heavy Rain. For me, it's a difficult one. As an unabashed fan of the studio's previous output, I really wanted to love Detroit. As it stands, I find myself thinking that it is a good video game, with more of Heavy Rain about it than beyond. But there's one too many moments that take the shine off what could and should have been an excellent PS4 title. Thank you for watching this video. If you have enjoyed it, please do like, share, comment and subscribe, and all of the other good stuff as well. Follow us on Twitter and we'll see you next time. Cheers guys, bye bye.